Oh man, they did it. What's good? It's Woog. They made Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda for Shakur Stevenson's WBC lightweight title. They had been discussing this fight for a while. They'd been trying to make the fight a couple of times in the past. Injuries prevented it, but the idea was that one of the best fights to make at lightweight would involve Shakur Stevenson and William Zepeda. And it just seems like in their recent fights, they had been on a collision course, especially because it seemed increasingly obvious that Gervonta Davis versus Shakur Stevenson wasn't going to be made anytime soon. And Vasily Lomachenko, we are still not sure of his status going forward. And the new star in the division, Keyshawn Davis, trains with Shakur Stevenson. So I don't expect to see that anytime soon. But as Shakur Stevenson went on to win a title in a third division, lightweight, and William Zepeda was pretty much tearing through many of the fighters in the division. Joseph Jojo Diaz, Mercito Hesta, stopping Maxie Hughes. In the fourth round, he stopped Mercito Hesta in the sixth round just before that. And then 2 fights later, stops Giovanni Cabrera in the third round. And Cabrera, remember, he had a pretty competitive, a pretty decent fight or a decent showing against Pitbull Cruz. So William Zepeda's been looking like a terror at lightweight, at least before these 2 recent fights against Tevin Farmer, which we're going to get back to. But William Zepeda has quickly become one of the most exciting fighters in boxing with the volume of punches that he throws and the fact that he just starts to pick up the pace round over round to where he just overwhelms and essentially drowns his opponent in activity. And it's not just pitter-pat activity. These are hard punches, many of which are to the body, and you just see otherwise good fighters like Maxie Hughes just unable to withstand that type of pace and that type of pressure and power. Again, Maxie Hughes, he got stopped within 4 rounds, but it looked like it felt like 14 rounds based on the amount of punches that he was taking at the hands of William Zepeda. So we had been wanting to see, can Zepeda really push and test the undefeated Shakur Stevenson? Both of these guys are undefeated, by the way, but Shakur Stevenson is of a higher stature, being that he's been, again, now champion in 3 divisions. And he's still on some people's top 10 pound for pound. And you know, the boxing cynic in me was like, yeah, they're not gonna make this fight. They're gonna have it continue to marinate. They're gonna, fight different opponents for like the next couple of years. And then when they're in their 30s, maybe you get Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. I didn't think that in their 20s, with Shakur Stevenson being 27 and Zepeda being 28, I didn't think that we were gonna get a fight this exciting, this good between them at this time. And if it wasn't for Turki Al-Sheikh, maybe we wouldn't be getting this fight at the time that we're getting it. But with Turki Al-Sheikh and with Riyadh season, TKO boxing, that's another conversation for another day. But with the entry of Turki Al-Sheikh and Riyadh season in Saudi Arabia in boxing, we've been getting a lot of fights that I'm not sure we would have gotten when we got them. Perfect example, Tyson Fury versus Usyk 1, I don't think would have gone down without Turki Al-Sheikh. Beterbiev versus Bivol 1, I don't think would have gone down without Turki Al-Sheikh. So what would have been a very skeptical outlook on the likelihood of Stevenson versus Zepeda being made, enter Riyadh season once again. And I know that they seem to have friction, at least online, for a minute, with Shakur Stevenson saying a couple things on social media and then coming back, several days later and somewhat apologizing, or at least making it seem right and admitting that maybe he got over his skis a little bit with his comments. Money can make a lot of things right. And Turki Al-Sheikh, he just seems, at least at this point, to want to put the best fights together. And no, this is not an ad for Riyadh season. I'm just giving you my view as a boxing fan, a lifelong boxing fan. This is just how I see it. But no, I don't think that Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda would have been made without Riyadh season. But here we are. July 12th will be the date Shakur Stevenson defends his WBC lightweight title against William Zepeda. And it's supposed to promote the launch of a new television series called Inside the Ring. So a lot of products and multimedia is being rolled out with some of these fight cards, as well as kind of new styles of boxing events. Like I just read about that WBC Grand Prix that's about to be underway with over 100 fighters participating. A lot of interesting stuff is going on. And again, we're going to talk about TKO boxing in a different video, but I am ultra excited about the idea of Shakur Stevenson versus Zepeda. And now that we've got this scheduled for July 2nd in New York. So this will be the second New York Riyadh season fight in just over 2 months, because remember, in early May, we're getting that Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza, Ryan Garcia versus Raleigh Romero, Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez fight card. And then what, I think Bacoli versus the Jogba is on that too. Yeah, loaded card. And I can't wait for that. But they are returning to New York City just over 2 months later, July 12th, for Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. So yeah, this is great news. And you know, my initial thoughts here are, first of all, I'm happy for Shakur Stevenson. It's been a frustrating journey seeing him try to get the fights that matter most. I know that, you know, he had a couple shining moments a couple years ago in his career against like Oscar Valdez and Jamel Herring at the time. But after that, he hasn't really been fighting the fights that we want to see him in. And when he did get an opponent that was very, very interesting, Edwin De Los Santos, who is now scheduled to fight Keyshawn Davis. That's going to be interesting. But when Shakur Stevenson fought Edwin De Los Santos, that resulted in one of the most boring fights in recent memory, nearly unwatchable. So yeah, it's been frustrating seeing Shakur Stevenson call out this guy or try to set something up with this guy, and it's all to no avail. And then he ends up fighting Shushiro Yoshino, or I mean, most recently, he was supposed to fight the exciting young, super young. I thought he was way too young to be fighting Shakur Stevenson, but Floyd Schofield, who pulled out of the fight, and then Josh Padley was a late replacement. So that was like the latest in a series of just either, you know, bad luck or just overall unfortunate career occurrences for Shakur Stevenson. But yeah, he's still undefeated. He's still the lightweight WBC champion. Again, 3-division champion, 23-0. And he's going to be fighting William Zepeda, who is 33-0 with 27 knockouts. So, you know, my initial thoughts here are, look, this would have been more exciting. Maybe more exciting isn't the word. It's still super exciting, but I think that the odds would have been closer had we not seen Tevin Farmer perform so well against Zepeda 2 fights in a row. One of them was a split decision win for Zepeda where he got dropped. And then in the rematch, it was a majority decision win for William Zepeda. And in that one, Tevin Farmer looked like he visibly injured himself. I thought he like hurt his hand in like the first round. It still ended up being a majority decision win for William Zepeda. And towards the end of that fight, Tevin Farmer looked like he had William Zepeda ready to go down, like really badly hurt. Let me know if you saw it differently, but in the 12th and final round, I thought Farmer, who I thought needed something big, had Zepeda badly hurt. So yeah, those 2 fights kind of lowered, I think, the overall thoughts and reputation of William Zepeda. And I think that the idea is, if Tevin Farmer did that well against William Zepeda, well, Shakur Stevenson is better than Tevin Farmer as far as we know or believe. Shakur Stevenson should be able to handle business against William Zepeda. But then I'm thinking, yeah, not so fast. Like, Tevin Farmer fought a very specific style of fight against William Zepeda, and I don't know if Shakur Stevenson's arsenal includes being in close quarters, rolling with that many punches, fighting on the inside, taking that many shots, absorbing that many shots, and being able to time the counters in the trenches with somebody who's, again, as high volume and as offensively aggressive as William Zepeda. Shakur Stevenson, you know, his style of sweet science is at range, managing the distance and defending yourself with distance, not being right here and trying to slip and trying to roll and fighting that, you know, kind of veteran savvy, rugged style of fight. Yes, Tevin Farmer had some slickness to him, and that's why he was able to roll with so many shots. Very intelligent fighter. But I don't know that to be Shakur Stevenson's game. Now, if he's able to execute a Tevin Farmer style of fight and do it even better than Tevin Farmer, well, then we would have learned something new about Shakur Stevenson. I just haven't seen that yet. Is his chin as durable as Tevin Farmer's? I think that's still, the jury's still out on that one. And William Zepeda isn't short-armed like Oscar Valdez, where Valdez, can be a pretty aggressive fighter at times, but he couldn't close the distance effectively enough against Shakur Stevenson. William Zepeda, at least on paper, has a slight height and reach advantage over Shakur Stevenson. So is Shakur Stevenson going to be able to throw enough heat to deter William Zepeda? Now, Zepeda does have a somewhat vulnerable chin as well. Again, he got dropped by Tevin Farmer in the first fight, and he got hurt against Tevin Farmer in the second fight. I thought he got buzzed against Jojo Diaz several fights ago, but he also beat the hell out of Jojo Diaz there. So I don't think this is apples to apples to say, well, if Tevin Farmer had that type of success against Zepeda, then we can expect Shakur Stevenson to have even more success. I don't necessarily think that that's the case, but I mean, earliest impressions, I do think that Shakur Stevenson at range can out-sweet science William Zepeda to the point where he might hurt Zepeda from distance. And that would be something if he's able to kind of keep the fight out here. And as Zepeda is throwing the volume, trying to make it a more eventful and high volume fight, if he gets tagged by Stevenson, given Stevenson's, sharpness, accuracy, Zepeda's not the best defensive fighter. I think that he's slightly underrated defensively. He's not just standing there letting you tee off on him, but some of his defense is his offense. It's just hard for me to picture, as good as William Zepeda's style has worked out for him, it's just tough for me to imagine Shakur Stevenson getting overwhelmed and just hit repeatedly by the high volume William Zepeda. I think something's got to give here. I don't think that, you can't fight William Zepeda just avoiding him and backing up. I don't think that works. We haven't seen that work, at least. You've got to stand your ground. And I know that Shakur Stevenson sometimes gets unfairly or fairly the reputation of being a non-fun fighter to watch, but he's not totally a runner. I look at Shakur Stevenson as a stand your ground type of guy. Floyd Mayweather, sometimes he, moved backwards, but he would often stand his ground and, if anything, take a step forward, maintaining his construct and start backing up the previously aggressive opponent. Wouldn't it be a sight to see Shakur Stevenson start to back up William Zepeda? I think that is a possibility here. Again, I don't think it's going to be in the trenches, close quarter, but I think that it might be at range, just given Shakur Stevenson's expertise. I think we might see that unfold here. So if I had to just go with my gut instinct on this one, and I'm going to do a full video as we near the date of the fight. Again, I can't wait. But if I was to just, pick it right now, I would say Shakur Stevenson via stoppage. Look, I don't see how Zepeda gets outboxed by Shakur Stevenson and doesn't try to do something about it with his volume and with his punch output. And if he's throwing so many punches, it's either going well for Zepeda or Zepeda might be getting hurt and getting stopped. I don't think Shakur Stevenson's gonna play the matador and just make Zepeda miss with 100 punches around. I think that either Zepeda is getting his way in there and Shakur Stevenson can't handle the volume and the pressure and the power and starts losing rounds. Because look, if you're a technician and surgical in the way that Shakur Stevenson is, going against a high volume guy, if you can't reduce that guy's volume, then you might be losing the rounds. Like, Zepeda's got a very fan-friendly and probably judge-friendly style. So Shakur Stevenson's gonna have to do something to reduce that output. And again, I think that if he's reducing the output, he's probably putting a hurt on William Zepeda. So I would say either Zepeda by decision or Shakur Stevenson via stoppage or knockout. And right now, I'm thinking Shakur Stevenson via stoppage or knockout. But again, this is very early. We're going to break this down further. I just wanted to voice my excitement over this fight being made and share with you some of my earliest thoughts on it. But yeah, let me know your early thoughts on Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. Again, bravo. Riyadh season, they got it done. Again, what they mean for boxing in the long run and what they mean to the current existence of the sanctioning bodies, the other promoters, and just the current boxing construct. We'll talk about that soon. But yeah, let me know your earliest thoughts on Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.